All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Amy Snow-Buckner, the Acting Managing Director of Communications here at the city. Just want to welcome you and thank you for being here. I have the distinguished honor of introducing you to our new city manager, Mark Washington. We're incredibly excited that he's here, that he's now a Grand Rapidian, so we're very excited to work alongside with him. And he's going to provide brief remarks today and answer general questions, and we'll get you out in a half hour so you can get to your next meeting, Mark.
Thank you, Amy, and thank all of you for being here. I want to acknowledge the presence of several of the commissioners that are here, Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Kelly, and Commissioner Lanier. Thank you all for being here today as well. This is day number 2, and so I had a great onboarding experience, had a chance to meet with several key staff members. I'm excited about being in Grand Rapids. I want to thank the Commission for their confidence in me, their support in me, and appointing me to be the city manager. And this is a great community. There are a lot of great things that are happening, and we know that we have our challenges before us. And so I'm going to be assessing the community needs, the priorities of our commissioners, as well as the organizational needs over the next 3 to 4 months. I've already talked to the senior cabinet members about having opportunities to visit every department and began talking to key leaders within the organization. I had a great conversation with the police chief this morning about some of the opportunities in the police department. Also, I'm going to be visiting with each of the commissioners. All of them have agreed to accompany me, or me accompanying them, on tours within their respective wards, and helping me to not only have productive conversations, but also to see visibly where some of the opportunities are to improve the city's impact on services that both residents and businesses are receiving. So I'm looking forward to that. I expect over the next 3 to 4 months, after getting the opportunity to understand the needs and priorities of our commissioners, talk to staff, as well as community members, to use that information to inform us as we begin our planning for our next fiscal plan. 2020 will be upon us pretty soon, and so I'm hoping to use some of that information to help us prioritize the opportunities for future investments. There's a lot about Grand Rapids that I don't know, and again, this is day number 2 on the job, but I am really looking forward to getting to know the residents in this community and working with the various departments. So I will do my best as we progress to communicate any insights that we gain along the journey. I do want to be very deliberate about engaging our workforce. There are a lot of great employees that are beyond the executive level, and so I did send out a communication. I surely will send out a communication to let the employees know that I will also be on site in their respective departments to have our own, if you will, employee town hall meetings as well, to hear what they have to say and what's important to them. So looking forward to the opportunity to engage everyone 360 degrees around the community to make sure that we can begin planning and doing the work of our government. So at this point, I will pause to take any questions that you might have.
I guess just to get started, the accomplishments of Grand Rapids are pretty well noted.
Yep.
But let's talk about the challenges. I don't know if you've narrowed it down to one, but what would you think or say is the biggest challenge facing the city, facing you, the commissioners, as you head into this new position?
Well, there are several, and some of them we'll be talking about next week at the work session. Obviously, looking at issues regarding housing, looking forward to the report that's coming back based on community engagement. So we know affordable housing is one. Police community relations, obviously I mentioned a meeting that I had this morning with the police department, and making sure that there's an appreciation of some of the issues, both on behalf of our officers about concerns that residents in the community has, but also the police chief did communicate with me the need for making sure that they're also resourced appropriately to make sure that they're able to police our community in a safe position, in a safe manner. So police-community relations is very important. Housing, we know we have big issues regarding the labor contracts that are coming up. We have all of our contracts that are going to be expiring pretty soon and are going to have to be renegotiated, and so that's not lost with me. So there are a number of issues that we'll have to balance and prioritize in the upcoming year.
Is there anything from Austin you'd like to pick up and bring over here other than the sun?
Well, obviously, I think there are a lot of lessons that we're going to be able to learn from the experience in Austin and other communities, but there are going to be some things that are going to be unique to Grand Rapids. So it's not necessarily plug and play. Some of the things that worked well may worked well there, may work here, but there may be other things that we will have to solve uniquely here in Grand Rapids that Austin may need to borrow and learn from how we do things here. So looking forward to that.
Along those lines, I was at a meeting with some economic development people last week. One of them, they were from around the country, and they said that they think Grand Rapids is the next Austin, which I thought kind of interesting. I mean, whether that's true or not, what are the things that Grand Rapids needs to do that you could bring to get a city like this to a level like that?
Well, you're exactly right. There are a lot of similarities in terms of the growth in the community, and I think what we will want to do is make sure that we're very deliberate and intentional and have smart growth. And by smart, I mean anticipating the unanticipated kind of consequences that comes along with growth. In terms of growth of population, you have growth in transit issues, mobility issues. There's also public safety issues that occur as part of growth. And so I think what we learned in Austin is that we didn't plan for all of that, we reacted to it. And I think Grand Rapids is in a unique position to be more deliberate in planning for the growth that's about to occur.
You touched on it a little bit. The commission's been really intentional and engaged in trying to make sure that the police and the community have a good relationship. There was a 12-point plan developed by the previous city commissioner. There was a new policy in place for how police interact with kids. Where do you, after talking with the chief, what's the sense that you get in how that relationship is between the community, between the police, and where does it get better and how?
Well, I think, number one, again, this was my first opportunity to meet with the chief, and these are very, very complex issues and requires or merits more conversation than just a couple hours this morning. But I think, in a word, I think the chief is committed to improving those relationships, and he's taking them very, very seriously. There are a lot of studies that are in flight right now, and there are not only 21st Century Community Report. I think we've engaged Grand Valley to assist us in a study, and there's a deployment study that the police department is in the middle of in terms of developing RFI or RFP to ensure that we're properly resourced. And so I think we're all anxious to get the results of all of that work, because that will help us to make the best informed decision from both improving our police community relations as well as our staffing levels. We need the results from that information, and the chief, along with as well as I, am anxious to get that information, so we will be able to share those results and recommendations with our commissioners.
Mr. Washington, on a personal note, you're the first African American that's ever been named city manager of Grand Rapids. What does that mean to you personally, and also how important is it for students at Grand Rapids Public Schools to see persons of color in leadership positions?
Well, let me go beyond me personally and just speak in generally. I think equity is a major value for this community, and as we begin to look at services throughout our community, we want to make sure that we're making sure that all services are being provided equitably, that everyone has the opportunity to achieve and live their fullest potential. And so I think community-wise and organizational-wise, that is a major focus. Having said that, I realize that I am coming into a unique opportunity and realizing what was not as not as well of an opportunity that some may have had before. I now have an equitable opportunity to be the first African American city manager. And I think that means a lot, not only to me personally, my family, first generation college graduate, but also I think it says something to others who are watching, students at Grand Valley State, as well as people throughout this community and country, that there are possibilities that can be achieved as long as people are willing to give others a fair opportunity to be successful. So I appreciate the opportunity that was given to me for this position. But I do want to make it clear that there is it's an accomplishment to be named the first African American city manager. But I am not here just to be the first African American city manager. I am here to manage the city and to assist this commission in moving its agenda forward. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be the first, and knowing that there are others that are coming behind me, but also that there's others whose shoulders who I've stood on to make this opportunity possible.
You're the first, go ahead.
A lot has been asked of you, what you can bring to the city, what you plan on doing. We know it takes a community to help build this city and take it to the next level that we all want to see and we all envision it. So let's flip it. What can we do as a community to help your success?
That's a great question. There are some things I don't know what I don't know in some areas about Grand Rapids, and so I'm going to need the community to be as transparent with me as I am with community. I'm pretty straightforward, and so if there are concerns, I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about things early before they become at a point where we lose trust and concern. So if there are members of the community that have concerns about some of the services and how the city is operating, I want to know that well in advance and try to manage those relationships. I want to make sure that we stay engaged, and there's a difference between us just communicating with each other and making sure that we're truly engaged. And so I'm going to be depending on my staff to make sure that I am participating in the meetings and parts of the community events that are not just initiated by staff or the city, but that are we want to be able to communicate with community where they are. So it is a partnership, and I appreciate that perspective.
Mark, I was just going to say, as I understand, you're the first city manager hired from outside City Hall in 2 to 3 decades. I'd imagine there's benefits and challenges to that, both. What would you say is benefit to you kind of coming from the outside, and what makes that a challenge?
Well, I think the benefit is my ability to look at the issues differently with a fresh set of eyes, and to begin an assessment of new ways to deliver services better, to improve upon what may not be obvious opportunities for current staff. I think obviously there's some blind spots. There's a learning curve that I'm going to have to adjust to, and but I have a great team that's fully committed to help us move forward together.
Tell us briefly about your family. Did your wife really want to be with you?
I have a great support system and a great family. I would not be here if I did not have a great family and support system. My wife and my 2 daughters are still in Austin. I have a senior in high school, and so did not want to relocate her in the middle of her senior year. She's been looking forward to this day, graduating with her classmates for a long time. The class of 2019 has been on her door for a long time, and so I wanted to make sure that I allowed her an opportunity to finish her senior year, and my wife and my youngest daughter will be relocating after graduation.
Have you guys done any house hunting? Do you want to live in the city? Do you want your youngest daughter to go to GRPS school?
Yeah, so yeah, I as city manager, I will be definitely living in the city and ensuring that my children are, my youngest daughter, rather, will be part of the school system here. So we did visit with GRPS. We visited a couple of schools, and great opportunities. I think we're going to, matter of fact, they'll be here next Tuesday for the swearing in, and looking forward to going and visit some schools on Monday.
You did pastoring over in Texas. Is that something?
Yeah, that was part of that's part of who I am, not only professionally but personally. But I pastored in several communities before, and knowing the opportunity that lies before me, have realized that I have a new community to shepherd, if you will, and so I do not intend to pastor in this community, but I certainly will be active in some faith-based organization. Matter of fact, I've already visited a church and know that I am welcome there.
Does that, having experience as a minister, does that give you a certain unique mindset when it comes to this job here? Do you think that plays any part?
Yeah, because I think the qualities for a true spiritual leader requires you to have a servant leader kind of attitude, and I think that's what I bring in terms of my leadership approach, not only to faith-based organizations, but any organizations, is to look at the opportunity how to serve first before being served. So I think that's transferable values.
Mark, we had a little bit of a topic. You said a little bit if you want to, make sure that you're advancing the commission's agenda and other community priorities. Are there certain priorities that you think are important to lead on?
Absolutely. Coming in, I think the city manager has to be very clear within the organization regarding the values that are created and established in terms of establishing culture. Because you can have strategy, you can have plans, but if you don't have values and culture, you won't have sustainabilities of those good plans and strategies. And so coming in is going to be real important for me to set the tone for the organization on the things that are important. And I think some of those values are some of those things the organization has valued in the past, such as inclusion and innovation, as well as making sure that we have mutual respect. But I think there are certain areas where I'm going to be reinforcing some values that perhaps are not as clearly affirmed. I'm going to be doing that even more. So I want to be very clear on the kind of values and the kind of organization that we are as a city.
Good afternoon, Mr. Washington. My name is Angie with the Spanish Radio 104GR.
Yes.
And we'd like to go ahead and welcome you to our community. And just had a couple questions. One is, what would be your commitment with the Hispanic community? And two is, have you gone over or addressed any or know of any of the issues and concerns that the Hispanic community is facing?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I just had a briefing this morning with one of our neighborhood officers, one of my assistants in my office, Stacy Stout, who was giving me an update on some of the issues that affect not only the Hispanic community, but all peoples of color, communities of color. But we did specifically talk about some of the issues that affect the Hispanic community. It's a growing community, and obviously there are issues regarding inclusion and issues that affect housing, and we're aware of all the national conversation around immigration and making sure that we are the kind of community that makes everyone feels welcome. And so I think I am scheduled to meet with several of the leaders from the Hispanic community as part of my orientation to community. The question was asked, how could community be helpful? And I think this is a community organized effort, and I appreciate their openness to allow me to come and have an opportunity to hear some of their concerns, as well as to share some of my insights on what might be helpful in improving equity, inclusion, and diversity with that community.
During your job interview, you said that you felt compelled to apply for the job, that you felt that it was almost a sense of calling to apply for the job. Can you expound on that a little bit and tell me just a little bit about what about Grand Rapids and this community drew you initially to throw your hat in the ring and apply?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I did mention before that the interview process was not my first familiarity with Grand Rapids, that I had on occasion to visit as early as 2016 as part of the national work that we were doing together with the Government Alliance on Racial Equity, and learning how to promote inclusion and equity in both of our communities. Austin visited Grand Rapids came to Austin, and we also went to other communities throughout the country. And when I first came, I mean, obviously you come into Grand Rapids, you fly into an amazing airport, come downtown, and you see all of the amazing venues that are downtown. It is very tourist friendly. It's a great destination to be at. It feels like home. As a matter of fact, I've said now that I don't feel like a visitor in this community. It really does feel like home. There are a lot of things that are here that do remind me of Austin. And so, and then looking at the organization, it is one of the premier cities, if not the premier city in the state, and one of the premier cities in the country. So it's been a well-ran organization, a very engaged community. There's a lot of people who care about Grand Rapids. There are significant community partners. Had an opportunity to meet some of them even last night. There are a lot of people who really want the community to thrive. And so it is that kind of engagement from community that makes it hard for someone not to be attracted to coming here.
You mentioned talking to the police chief. Can you
Yeah.
speak to the rest of the week here in terms of other community leaders that you're hoping to be with and looking forward to those conversations?
Yeah, so I think this week I'm starting with the inner circle, if you will, that's closest to me. I met with the executive cabinet members collectively, and having individual meetings with all of the managing directors. I have a tour starting tomorrow, I think in the First Ward with Commissioner O'Connor. We have the tours in the Third Ward with Commissioner Lanier. I can't remember the exact date that's scheduled. Is it tomorrow as well? Okay. I have several other tours scheduled, and I think we're going to block out about 3 hours or so for some of the riding tours. Meeting with public safety, met with the police chief. I'm meeting with the fire chief right after. Matter of fact, I think you may be waiting on me meeting with fire chiefs to talk about some of the public safety issues, getting briefed on those matters, and I think there are several other meetings with community leaders that are on the calendar. My calendar is booked between now and November with lots of opportunities for meetings and check-ins.
Last question for me. I did a little bit of research, and last year in Austin there was a ½ inch of snow, and the city almost shut down. How are you going to adjust to 75 inches of snow, and did the city offer you a snowblower with your contract?
Well, it's funny you ask. I was, as I was making my way around, there was a senior staff meeting yesterday preparing for the winter season, and I have not had an opportunity to get debrief with them about our preparedness efforts, but it's apparent that we have a lot of staff members who know exactly what they're doing regarding those efforts. So I will not be leading that effort, but will be very supportive of the staff. But I'm looking, believe it or not, I'm actually looking forward to experiencing that, because you can't experience Grand Rapids without embracing that. So I'm looking forward to it.
This is my last one. So obviously, you know, the process to get to you is the long one. There
Yeah.
were other candidates that never chosen, essentially. And I know that the mayor told one of our other reporters that they basically had to make this a sweeter deal to attract more talent, which
Yeah.
includes offering
Yeah.
a nicer salary, a better salary
Yeah.
than what the previous city manager had. So they have, done that to draw you in. Do you feel like there's, I don't know, pressure there because they felt like they had to raise the stakes in the offer to bring in someone like you?
Yeah. Well, if I were the only person that was in that kind of competitive environment, I certainly feel unique, but I don't think that's unique to our organization. I think those issues regarding recruitment and retention and making sure pay is competitive is something that is reflective of many of the jobs in our workforce, particularly when you start talking about with all the development and being competitive among the trades, or even among recruiting talent for our public safety professionals and other areas that are specializations, attorneys. So I think what the public saw very visibly for the city manager is a matter that happens day in, day out in the organization. And I can stand here and tell you, had they not reconsidered their recruitment approach and package, I may not have been standing here today. Because based on the previous package that was offered, it would have been a demotion, a pay cut for me to come to Grand Rapids as an assistant city manager. So I think this is something that all governments are, if you're going to be a world-class city, if you're going to be a premier employer, if you're going to be a destination to compete with people across the country, then your lens is going to have to widen on a lot of areas. And I think this is just an example of some of the jobs that where that whole issue of recruitment and retention happens. It happens to be the highest job in the organization. But I am grateful. I don't take it lightly. I appreciate what the commissioners have done, ultimately what the taxpayers are funding, and there is some responsibility to make sure that taxpayers get their money's worth. And I want to let you know that they are, because even though today's my second day officially on the payroll, it is not my second day working and preparing for this opportunity. Ever since the appointment, I have been spending days in Austin, nights at home preparing for this opportunity, and they're going to get every penny that comes in my paycheck and more out of me.
You mentioned world-class city. Do you think Grand Rapids is a world-class city right now? And if not, what do you think? What do they have to do? What does Grand Rapids have to do to get?
Well, I think it is in terms of a destination. I mean, the tourism industry is very, very successful here, and you do have people who come across the country, and I have met people who have been here this week for Art Fest. Art Prize, I'm sorry, as part of their experiencing Grand Rapids. And so obviously there are opportunities to improve our attractiveness, and but we can't be so attractive to people outside the community that we begin to marginalize even more the people who have been here and who don't feel like they can fully appreciate all the experiences that Grand Rapids has to offer, even as local residents. And so there's a balance that we're going to have to create to make sure that not only visitors feel like this is a great community to visit, but residents feel like that they're fully engaged as well.
All right, Mark, I think we need to get going, right?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. We'll let you know how day 3 goes tomorrow, right? Right here, same time? Yeah. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Are you a Cowboy fan?